How to install Visual Code Studio on Windows. What we do, we search on Google Visual Studio Code or even Visual Studio. We shall be taken to the website. It's at the top here. Just like other websites, the Visual Studio Code website detects which operating system we are using currently, and that's why it's showing Windows. If you had Mac OS, Ubuntu, it will show here that version. Like you can see here, if I click this arrow, it shows you here that you can download for Mac OS or Linux or Windows. They have two versions of Visual Code for each operating system. They have the stable version, which I recommend for beginner developers or developers who don't want to test non-official features. And they have the insiders. Now, the insiders is for those people who want to test out some features before they are published to the public and give them back to the developers. I would recommend to download the stable build. You click download and you can see here, thanks for downloading VS Code for Windows. And you can see here that it has started downloading. And once it starts downloading, be ready to start installing it. In any case, it does not start automatically. You can click this. That's why you see download not starting. Try this download link. So I'll click over here to open the folder where it has been downloaded. I'll double click it here so to start the installation process. The installation process opens for me an installation wizard, and I click accept agreement. Then it will ask me which folder I want to install it. I don't want to install it on this location, so I will choose a different folder. I'll choose local disk C, Microsoft VS Code, and say OK, then next. Now, if I don't want to create a start menu folder, I click this one, I check this one, but I want, so I will leave it. Then I want to create a desktop icon, and I want to add VS Code to the Windows Explorer by selecting this option, add open with code action to Windows Explorer file, context menu, add open with code action to Windows Explorer directory menu. So I'll select both of these and I'll leave these as they are. Then I'll click next and install. The installation process is very straightforward like that. And after it completes, I leave this to launch Visual Studio Code and I finish. So here is Visual Studio Code opened, and it has opened one of the files I was working on. So I won't really mind about this. I'll close it, but I want to show you a few things. Here in this left bar, there is an Explorer. This is where you see your code, but at the extreme left, there are certain icons which change the context of this Explorer window. Like for example, if I click search, the context has changed. If I click the source control, the context changes to that. And if I click this, open a file which can be debugged or run. And the most important section is here, which is the extensions section. So if you want to install a VS Code Python extension, you can click. But if you want to install an extension that you know, for example, if I wanted to install an extension called Prettier, I would write Prettier here. Prettier is a code formatter. I won't explain much about it because that is beyond the scope of this video. So I'll click install and it will be installed. Prettier helps format code. So there are millions of extensions on VS Code, and that's one of the reasons why we use VS Code as opposed to others. Here you can create Microsoft accounts and sign in. You can see accounts here, and here you can manage different things. Like you can change the color theme. I usually like the Wesboss color theme, and I look for Wesboss, and yes, Cobalt 2. This is the one I like, and I click it to install it, and my VS Code editor will adopt this VS Code extension, which makes it, in my opinion, makes it look really nice. It gives it a good font, it highlights the code properly, and so on and so forth. Then there are things where you may want to open a terminal in VS Code editor, and if you click here, the terminal opens over here. Around here, we can choose the type of shell we want. For example, by default, it has opened the Windows PowerShell, but if I want to run Linux commands, I would prefer to use gitbash. So I will put gitbash here, and it is open. I can go back to PowerShell by clicking here, or I can cancel that out, and I can now have gitbash opened. So to test it, I can type the ls command, which is for Linux, and listing directories, and there you go. Let's see how to open a file, a particular folder or file with VS Code. So what we can do, for example, if I want to open this file here, which is to test tutorial, I can right click and select open with VS Code, and they'll ask me if I trust this location, and I'll select yes, I trust. And yeah, so the folder has been opened. I can open the files in it. I can add files, like for example about.php. Yeah, so if we wanted to open a particular file, not a folder, like for example, if I wanted to open this file here on my desktop, which is my PHP file.php, I right click and open with code, and it will be opened. That's it. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.